And we're back here at Trade Profit Accelerator. This is the organization lesson. And to give you a little bearing of where you are in the course, in case you forgot, we're in week 1 planning. And this is day 4, the lesson on organization. Okay. Here's what we're going to cover. There's a little puzzle story. Okay. Everyone has their place in the organization, and you want to make them feel important too. And the next thing we're going to talk about is a different kind of organization, the organization in your life and also in your mind. And I do want to just take a second out to distinguish between the two organizations because it does get a little confusing. There's one organization that is like a team, like your company or your organization of people, and then there's actually organizing things in your own life, which is the bullet point 2, what I'm talking about, organization in life and in your mind. Okay, so I'm going to just make that 2 distinctions up front, is that don't get confused. I am talking about 2 different types of organization in this one lesson here. And lastly, we're going to close it out with a team mentality and talk about Dr. Hill's imagination. And he's a very famous author with the 2nd best-selling book of all time. Actually, I think it got surpassed by the Harry Potter books, but I'm not too thrilled about that. I'm gonna keep saying this is the 2nd best-selling book of all time just because I like the way it sounds better. And so here's what this can do for you. This can help build a stronger organization of your team members, and it can give you a solid team mentality. It can also bring peace and order to your life and mind with a different type of organization, right? And it can save you time, money, and headaches, and I'm going to get into how it can in these slides, okay? So, but first is the puzzle story. Every person has a place. And I was told this by an Army general when I went to Washington, D.C. for a leadership development program, and I was working in Philadelphia for the Army Corps of Engineers at the time, and I signed up for this leadership development program. And it was a tough choice. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do the LDP, is what they called it, because it was more work and I wasn't getting paid for the work. It was no more money. But I'm super glad I did it, not only for this trip to DC where I got all these cool ideas, but also it definitely changed my perspective on things as well. And a lot of this course has some of these sources and some of this information that I picked up right in this LDP program. Okay, so anyway, this general started talking to a group of us, and he started out. It was pretty funny. He was like, "Oh, you guys have probably all heard of this story about organization being like a puzzle and everything, right?" And we all kind of like looked at each other and we were like, no, we've never heard an organization's like a puzzle. And he's like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll just tell that story then." He just nonchalantly started telling this story, and he related an organization to being like putting together a puzzle, in that the director really needs to have a vision of what they want the organization to be. And where there's no vision, the pieces perish. And it's the director's job to match the right pieces or people to the right positions, right? So most leaders can line up the borders if given enough time and they have a decent idea of what the vision looks like. But it's the truly great leaders who have both organizational understanding and operational excellence that can, if given enough time, place every piece into just the right spot to complete the puzzle. Isn't that a great analogy? And you do want to save the hard to place pieces for the end. Some places, some pieces are just going to kind of jump out at you in the beginning because they're so distinctive. And others you might not be able to fit in the right place right away. And you don't need to beat yourself up about it. You can just save those pieces until you have the bigger picture figured out. So once everything's in place, it's going to be easier to see if the rest of the pieces even fit at all. And at first, you must assume everyone there is meant to be there, and you should emphasize their purpose to draw out their place, and that's going to help you as a leader and manager. And in the scenario, a piece doesn't seem to fit. That's okay, it happens. Do what you can with what you have. And the best way to deal with non-performers is to throw them away, right? No, I'm just kidding. That's what you do if you found pieces to a puzzle that didn't fit your vision, right? You just throw it away. But because it's a little more sensitive in the workplace, what you want to do is you just want to confront those people and tell them that they no longer work here, right? And it's better just to leave it at that. Is just say, listen, like, you're not fitting in the big picture, and you no longer work here. And you should tell them the reasons so that they know for future positions they don't fit because XYZ, right? And this is an extreme example, but let's say you have a nice vision of a green forest, right? And you find a piece that's bright blue and it's just not matching the other 1,000 pieces. Like, it stands out like a sore thumb, right? Maybe it said it was green on its resume. That's a little joke there. And it's those strategic leaders that can see the forest through the trees and remove the distraction because it doesn't fit in the vision. So that's basically it for the puzzle story. And I did want to point out some puzzle limitations and the theory behind that. So obviously there's physical limitations, actual space and size, but there's also identity limitations. They may not feel like they belong. And shape limitations too. Are they going to fit in that position? And then also logistical limitations, actually getting them to the right place requires time, energy, effort, all those things. Okay, so these are some of the limitations that come when we're talking about puzzle theory. And that's it for the puzzle story. So let's start to pivot a little bit to the other type of organization, because this is super important. It can help you out in your life and your business and your mind and everything, really. So let's get right into it. The same way you think about your work organization, really trying to find everyone's place and make them feel like they belong, you can do the same thing with your belongings. You can categorize and organize them in a way that makes sense to you and is in line with a consistent and brilliant vision. Quite often, when it comes to your stuff, you're the one that matters most, and the main goal is to easily locate your stuff when you need it, right? It's interesting that an organized life and an organized mind seem to go hand in hand most of the time anyway, and this is because generally speaking, how you are in one thing is how you are in everything. If you're lazy about cleaning up, you're probably lazy about brushing your teeth, and you're probably lazy about your TPS reports at work. Right? There's a little Office Space reference there for anyone that saw that movie. And it is really important to choose excellence in even the most menial and insignificant tasks. If you start to do this, it will change your life. So choose to start doing your absolute best in every endeavor. When I first got overseas, I met a great mentor, Mr. Boyd. He was an Army Master Sergeant, I think. And he taught me more about my life organization than I learned in my 16 years of formal education. At the end of a long day, when I was heading home, I stopped in to report my daily activities because he was the commanding officer at the time. And I noticed how his desk was clear of everything. And that just, it was so interesting to me. I couldn't help but ask how his desk was so clean, knowing that he was way busier than me and he had many more action items than I did every day. And my desk was a mess. So I had to ask. And his response was unforgettable and not what I would have guessed at all. He very seriously told me that it took years to get to that level of excellence. Often he'd be in the office until past 7 p.m., ensuring all the actions were taken care of and paperwork was properly filed away. He could access hundreds of documents with ease, and it was really just all super impressive to me. But it was only possible because of his hard work and discipline, and he made sure to tell me that. I'm really glad he didn't sugarcoat it. And this brings us to the big idea in this lesson is to keep a clean desk, room, and house. And you've really got to work at it every day. In the work environment, I thought the opposite of that was actually good. See, back in my home office, a clean desk meant that you needed work. It really did. And that you weren't busy. And at first, it was a while getting over that. When I got home, I did change that, and I changed my mindset and stuff. And it did bring me more work, but in a good way, And similar to Mr. Boyd, it took me a while to get to that level, but I eventually achieved it. It happened one plan set and often one piece of paper at a time. And within a year of getting back, this is how my desk looked at the end of every day. And something weird started to happen. Besides my coworkers thinking I was insane, I felt a lot better when I got to work. It was like a weight was lifted off me. There was no clutter in front of me, so I could focus more on what really mattered, which was scheduling vacations and time off. This is not a joke. I'm dead serious about this. And similar to that lesson, I learned a different organization technique from another coworker, also happened to be overseas. And the fact that I took a chance and took that position overseas is a testament to how valuable actually getting outside your comfort zone is. I noticed my coworker Kia, Sasha Kia, her nickname was Kia, had 4 emails in her inbox when I was over her shoulder. Again, I was intrigued. I knew she got hundreds of emails a day because she had twice my project loads, and I never asked her about it. I just started working to try to get to that level. And eventually, years later, I finally got there. And at the end of each week, I filed emails away into proper folders that I built. And often I had an empty inbox, at work at least. My personal emails are another story, but at least I keep my action items controlled at work. And I know it's in my inbox, I need to take care of it before the week. And I had a clean, organized record of everything, and it was easy to access. So super cool. I used to constantly lose track of emails and forget to complete action items until I started doing this. And this really was a game changer for me at work. So that's it for my organization in life and in your mind story. Okay. Now I want to pivot again to the team mentality and Dr. Hill's imagination and the story about that. So let's get right into this. Napoleon Hill is a famous author from the 1930s. He wrote a book on success. It was 25 years in the making. He took philosophies from over 500 business titans of his time, and it was under instruction by Andrew Carnegie, who was the richest man in the world at one point. In one of his chapters, he outlines what he calls the sixth sense. And this isn't like the M. Night Shyamalan movie about the sixth sense. It's not really about seeing ghosts, but kind of. Maybe this is what spawned the imagination of the movie. I don't know. But Dr. Hill wrote about imaginary meetings with influential people of his time. Some of the people were characters he had actually met and worked with, like Edison and Ford were among his imaginary members who he knew in real life. However, there were characters in the meeting who he had not met and only knew from reading about, like Abe Lincoln, who would often walk in solemn parade because the cares of a sundered nation made him grave. His meetings started with just 9 members who he routinely called upon to participate. And while the members of his cabinet were fictional and only existed in his mind, they have led him into glorious paths of adventure, rekindling appreciation of true greatness, encouraged creative endeavors, emboldened the expression of honest thought. All these things were benefits of his meeting. During his meetings, he found himself most inspired, and he owed it all to his invisible counselors. He called it his sixth sense. And he wrote that he would go to his invisible counselors with his toughest challenges. And astoundingly, he quite often got real actionable results, although he didn't solely rely on these meetings. And you can read more about this about his experience in chapter 14 of Think and Grow Rich, named The Sixth Sense, the Door to the Temple of Wisdom, the 13th Step Toward Riches. Okay. And so to recap, I told the puzzle story about the general in the army who talked in front of the leadership development program folks. And then we talked about organization, how you basically should keep a clean desk, house, mind, things like that. And then we talked about team mentality and really stirring up your own imagination and bringing in thoughts and actions from others. So that brings us to our action item today, and you may have guessed that it's to form your own team of counselors. Write down a list of at least 2 people you know well enough to call upon to solve your toughest challenges. Either people you know or that you know of, alive or in spirit. The better you know them or the more influential they are, the better they'll be to have on your team. Okay, and the second action item is I pulled out chapter 3 of the 4-Minute Work Week. I write about organization and just read this document, and that'll give you some good insights as well. Okay, So that's the last action item, and that wraps up this lesson on organization. I will see you in the next lesson, the last day here in the planning week, day 5. All right, see you then.